What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the Week 10 college football betting preview. I'm stuck in with me, as always, is Colin Wilson. You done monkeying around over there?
Monkeying around, looking for some trick-or-treat candy. This has been such an eventful week already. You and I are podcasting on Thursday. It feels like we've already had a full week of games because nobody plays defense in the MAC. And I can tell you, like, taking an under in this conference is going to be about impossible. Even with Akron, like, firing Tom Arth, like who's playing defense in this conference? It's amazing. I see the games on schedule for next week. Central Michigan, Kent. What is that going to be? 105 points? Yeah, we'll get to the monkey stuff later, though.
Yeah, college football playoff rankings came out. They were interesting. We'll talk about them maybe throughout, and make sure you tune into the Sources podcast episode with Colin and Brett McMurphy. And as always, make sure you tune into the Group of Five guys. They kill it every week. All right, we have so much to get to. So let's jump right in. And as always, we'll start with look ahead or look away. By request, people were saying, you used to put out your favorite situational spots, a piece out there. So I got a couple DMs. So I will have that out there this week. Maybe 7 of them. And 7 of my favorite spots. This is one of them. We'll start with Penn State traveling to Maryland. 3:30 Eastern kickoff. Penn State is a 10-point favorite, over under 55.5. So my initial thoughts on this, awful spot for Penn State. I got to give them credit. They show up last week. They get up off the mat after that Illinois 9-overtime loss. Their coach didn't even know who they were playing that week, but they got up off the mat. They put up a fight against Ohio State. They lose. They drop to 5-3. Now they travel to College Park for their second straight road game against a 5-3 Maryland team with Michigan, and they have Michigan on deck. It's just hard for me to envision Penn State, which had so many bigger hopes for the season, being motivated for this game. There's a huge chance they come out flat, just like we saw last year. Last year, Penn State lost to Ohio State to drop to 0-2. Pretty much ended their college football playoff hopes. The next week, they played Maryland. This time at home, they were down 35-7 in the third quarter.
Yep. Came
out completely flat. So I think this number is too high, a tad too high just on the surface. I hate backing Maryland at home, but here we go again. Throwing this spot, I'm backing the Terps plus 10. They lost Demas at receiver, but I'm a little less worried about their receiver situation based on what I've seen the past couple weeks. And Tagovailoa has looked fantastic for most of this season outside of that Iowa game. Penn State's offense still has issues. They can't run the ball. The offensive line is bad. Clifford, I'm sure, will move the ball here, but there's a good chance Penn State comes out really flat. And I think Maryland could score enough wouldn't shock me if they were in position to pull off this outright. So give me the Terps. Do you agree here?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think, you and I have talked about this before. You are a reflection of your head coach. And when you have someone like James Franklin, the losses can pile up pretty fast. Look at the streaks they were on last year. Lost 5 straight, won 4 straight. And, so, when we break down the number, it's something I project 8.5. So there is value on the Maryland number as we record at 10, a total of 52, a little bit of value on some under here. And as a person that has like over 5.5 as one of my biggest preseason bets on Maryland's win total, I'd love an upset here before the Michigan game. And then I'm going to eventually probably going to have a buyout spot against Rutgers on that Terps win total over. But, 4 straight games against the spread losses for Maryland. They won, but they didn't cover against Indiana. They lost 3 straight. Yeah, they lost 3 straight before that. I think what people need to realize, that losing streak included a net -10 in turnovers, 7 of them to Iowa, of course. They're great in gaining 500 yards against Indiana, but they're bad in letting the Hoosiers offense put up 450 yards, which is like a theme every week. Penn State rushed just for 33 yards against Ohio State. They're in that game. They've completely given up on running. 122nd rushing success rate. But let's go to Coach Franklin, who's quickly on his way to USC. James Franklin in the presser this week. Our RPO game will become more explosive when people respect the run. This week, we're going to make people respect the run. That's pretty interesting on those comments, considering the total keeps going up. right? I mean, if you're committed to running the ball, I don't know why that total keeps going up. So Maryland's outside the top 100 in coverage. They're outside the top 90 against the explosive pass. But Clifford, this is something I didn't realize either. Clifford's 42-yard pass against Illinois, he had one pass for 42 yards. That's the longest gain from scrimmage over the last 3 games. I can't. They have no explosiveness. So the pass game is
got me. Dunk.
Yeah, I'm looking at the under here. I'm with you on Maryland. Penn State's defense limited the Buckeyes to 305 passing yards. So Maryland, it's not like Maryland's just going to line up and run the ball or get it down the field fast. But can the Nittany Lions maintain this level of defense? I mean, look at this. They've been the MVP against Indiana, a 3-point win against Iowa heading into the bye, 9 overtimes against Illinois, then Ohio State. I mean, they're the MVP every single game. Can you keep up this level of play? I'm with you on Maryland. I'm looking at the under 2.
Moving on to our second spot here. Let's move to the Big 12 and take a look at Baylor, who is a 7-point favorite traveling to TCU. Baylor last week, comeback win over Texas. Again, they trailed, I believe, 21-10 in the second half. Next week, they have Oklahoma in a massive game with Big 12 title implications, national, maybe college football playoff implications as well. Talk about a sandwich. You come back to beat Texas. You have Oklahoma on deck. Now you have, 3 and 5 TCU. TCU obviously been one of the most disappointing teams in the country. As a result, they fire Gary Patterson. They move on from him. The question is this line too high? Does the team rally here? I'm going to lean on yes. And now if they lose this game and get blown out, they're a dead team. I will not touch them. I would only fade them. But this is, you still have a chance to go to a bowl. You pretty much got to win this game. But this is everything's been disappointing this year. Now you have a new regime in, and you're playing your in-state rival at home, and they're a top 20 team. You can ruin their season. It's hard not to get up for that. So I expect TCU to get up for this. We don't know who's going to be a quarterback. We don't know if Zach Evans is playing, but the running back room is loaded. The defense has been so poor that it's just hard for me to envision that they're not going to be any better. If I don't use any priors for TCU, which has always been a really good defense, they have a ton of talent. They have NFL players on this defense. I would not even touch TCU with a 10-foot pole. But I expect this defense to at least look. They're giving up 6.9 yards per play. There's only 8 teams in the country that are allowing 6.9 yards or more. But I expect some improvement on the TCU defensive side. It's a really bad spot for Baylor. I'm hesitantly. I need the 7. And there's a 7 out there. Would not go any lower. I'm hesitantly going to buy low on TCU and play this spot with a new staff too. And Gary Patterson was in the building this week, helping them prepare. But the new staff also, look, you can have a couple new wrinkles, a couple new looks that Baylor's prepared for. That element of surprise could work in their favor. So I do think the line is a bit inflated. I'm assuming that TCU is eventually the defense is going to get a little better. Now, in fairness, it's the healthiest their defense has been all year. The defense still with a plethora of key injuries. So give me the Horned Frogs here. It's scary, but I think that's the side.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Baylor -3 is a projection, total of 58. So I'm not going to pay attention to the overall total of the game because the steam on this is just wailed on the 5. It's got it up to 7 at some shops and stuck. I'm in the same boat as you. When's it going to stop steaming, right? Because every time it's gone from 6.5 to 7, it gets whacked with sharp money, comes back down to 6.5, and then we're back at 7 again. So are we going to get above a touchdown here? And of course, the elephant in the room is the firing of Gary Patterson. You're right. He showed up to the offices. He went over the Baylor game plan with his assistants. The TCU AD, Jeremiah Donati, said that he showed great class, and that's just always been the case with Patterson. So the question is, do the players, specifically the defense, do they play their best game of the season under interim Jerry Kill, which please stay in good health, Jerry Kill, who I think has had a couple heart attacks on the sideline, and no joke, for real. So, it'd be interesting to see how these players respond. There's been social media activity this week that's important. Gary Patterson encouraging Zach Evans about who he is as a person. Patterson's wife calling on the players to stick together and fight on for TCU. There's a lot of support for Gary Patterson on social media through the TCU players. but they're bottom 10 in everything in defensive statistically. It's really tough to say, well, now they flip a switch and all of a sudden they can play some defense, because they allowed Kansas State to triple the national average in explosive plays. They allowed West Virginia's offense to be explosive and gain 20% more in national average and available yards. I mean, getting West Virginia to look that way. So, there's nothing in the numbers that suggests to me that Baylor and quarterback Jerry Bohannon and, running back Abram Smith are not going to just run wild here. So the question is, will TCU be able to keep up against that multiple scheme that Dave Aranda calls? TCU put up 33 in a win last year. Max Duggan played in that game. He's coming off his own surgery last year in the pandemic. And Duggan may not play in this game. He's got a bone fracture. Kill said it's taking a toll on him. Chandler Morris got some playing time last week, son of Chad Morris, former OU quarterback, 111 yards on 14 passing attempts, no touchdowns, so nothing special there. I think the only thing that I can lock down that I am playing on this game is that Baylor is 12th in the college football playoff rankings. They may be looking for style points. Baylor has scored at least 31 points in every single win this year. Their team total is 32 in this game. So I'm going to bank that TCU doesn't have much improvement on defense. I don't know if they can keep up on offense, but I am playing Baylor over 32 team total points.
I will be the one in fear with a TCU ticket.
I gotta see that 7.5. You gotta wait and see if that 7.5 comes, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking 7, and if I can get 7.5, I'll take a little bit more. All right, let's move on to another spot here. Another one that I'm betting. This is one of my favorite cards of the year, so we'll see how that works out. Ole Miss hosting Liberty in the Hugh Freeze Bowl. Ole Miss, depending on the book, 9.5, 10-point favorite over Liberty. This, to me, is a horrible spot for Ole Miss for multiple reasons. We faded them last week with Auburn, Bo Nix season in full effect, because of their grueling October, right? They go Alabama to start it, on the road, and then LSU, and then Tennessee, and then Arkansas, and then Auburn, like 5 SEC games in 5 weekends, home away, home away, home away in the month of October. Well, there's still no break. They come home, and after getting beat up in that Auburn game, and play Liberty this Saturday. Liberty, meanwhile, was off of a win against UMass. They basically had a bye week. So there's, from an injury and freshness perspective, huge edges for Liberty. And their quarterback, by the way, this is a matchup of 2 quarterbacks who could be the first 2 quarterbacks taken in the NFL draft. Malik Willis, a couple weeks ago, was dealing with an injury. He's now healthy. And, he had a couple bad games with some picks, but he's been much cleaner with the ball the past few games and looks healthier. One of the most dynamic running quarterbacks in the country as well. So, look, Liberty should be able to move the ball against Ole Miss. It's a poverty defense. We know that. And on the other side of the ball, this Ole Miss offense, which, look, Lane Kiffin with Matt Corral and these weapons, one of the best offenses in the country. The problem is it's a crippled Matt Corral. Their top 3 receivers could be out. Their starting tight end might be out, and both of their top guards are out. So, I mean, last week they're throwing a walk-on tight end and a walk-on wide receiver. This is not the same Ole Miss offense that you remember from earlier in the year. And on top of that, like, I don't think Lane Kiffin came out and said midweek, I don't think that, as of now, all 3 top receivers wouldn't play. And the tight end probably wouldn't play. And it kind of makes sense. Like, you're playing Liberty at home. This is the week you need to rest for the rest of the year. So I think that they'll probably err on the side of caution. Matt Corral's beat up too. So I think 10 is too many here with Liberty, who should score against, especially with a very beat up, undermanned Ole Miss offense. Give me the Flames. Liberty, Liberty, Liberty.
Yeah. I love it. I'm with you. I took 9.5. I'm not worried that there's a 10 out there. I don't know. Maybe I'll buy it again. There's going to be a full preview. I was the one that drew this game for the write-ups this week. There's going to be a lot of Bible verses out there. So if you're into Hugh Freeze and preaching the Bible, I got some Isaiah in there. I got some fire and brimstone. I got all kinds of good stuff. And if you've ever partied in Memphis before, you know what I'm talking about. But listen, this is the biggest game I feel like of Hugh Freeze's life. And that's saying something for a guy that's beaten Alabama twice, right? A guy that's been to a Sugar Bowl. Freeze's disgraceful exit from Ole Miss, if you don't know, in case you've been living under a rock, Houston Nutt filed a defamation smear lawsuit against Ole Miss and Hugh Freeze. Felt like, Houston Nutt did not enjoy the way that his departure was from Ole Miss, blamed Hugh Freeze and, people at Ole Miss for the way that he was being profiled, filed a defamation smear lawsuit, and that turned up Freeze's school Ole Miss supplied cell phone, which, provided phone records that was filled with things that most souls would burn on a cross for. Funny enough, now Freeze is the coach of the Liberty Flames. So Liberty is like having major issues in havoc allowed. We've talked about this before. Like, how did ULM win this game? And there's a big drop off in offensive line play. It's trickled down to Malik Willis's productivity. He had 6 INTs in back-to-back weeks against Middle Tennessee, against ULM. And the issue in this game is that Ole Miss has no pass rush. The Ole Miss defense has been bad in success rate, but they're worse when their opponents get into scoring position. 31 red zone attempts against this Ole Miss defense, 26 touchdowns allowed. That's crazy. No field goals, all 6 points. So what's the status of Matt Crown? The ankle, you mentioned it. I feel like this is going to be a big Jerry and Ely. Snoop Connor exclusively on the ground. Luke Altmaier will be in there at quarterback. Liberty's been excellent against the pass. They're 33rd in coverage, and they're 7th in defensive passing success rate. So this is an Ely Connor game, which means it shouldn't be as high scoring and as up-tempo as you would think. I took Liberty 9.5. I play it down to 7. Rebels have Texas A&M next week. They have Egg Bowl in 3 weeks. They need people healthy. This game means everything to Freeze. It doesn't mean shit to Ole Miss. It doesn't mean anything to Lane Kiffin. And Lane Kiffin talked about Freeze. He's like, listen, my brother worked for Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss. And Kiffin's words were, this may be the best game day coach out there from a preparation standpoint. I'm impressed with Hugh Freeze and how he gets his players to play. That's enough for me. I'm taking Liberty. I'd play it down to 7.
Yeah, I would lean under here too. Ole Miss on totals are unders are always scary, but I do agree that Ole Miss is probably going to go heavy dose of run here, and their offense is being priced in the market as if it's close to full strength. That's nowhere close.
Right.
But I agree. Great spot for Liberty. All right, moving on here to our final game, and look what another game I will be playing. NC State traveling down to Florida State. NC State is a 2.5 point favorite here. All they have to do, NC State, all they have to do is beat 3-5 Florida State to set up a showdown next week with Wake Forest, where the winner will likely win the ACC Atlantic. Even if Wake Forest loses, that game will put the winner will be in first place. Well, it's easy, right? Well, not so fast. I actually like Florida State here a lot. Digging into their numbers, Florida State, people remember Florida State for losing to Jacksonville State, getting trucked by Wake Forest. Well, who was the quarterback in those games? Mackenzie Milton. You look at his numbers, miserable. They're 0-3 in Milton starts. They averaged 18 points per game. Here's who they played: Louisville, Jacksonville State, and Wake Forest. Not a murderer's row of defenses. They averaged 18 points per game. Jordan Travis's 5 starts. Remember, he started that opening game against Notre Dame where they almost won in overtime. 3-2. Their 2 losses against Notre Dame in overtime and against Clemson last week, and again, they led in the fourth quarter. They're averaging 37 points per game in those 5 games, more than double what they averaged with Milton. So you look at you strip out the Mackenzie Milton possessions, this offense profiles really well. And I don't think the market is adjusting for that. The young pieces on the Florida State defense are also improving. Just look at what they did in the month of October. It was a really impressive month for Florida State. The team, I think, is trending up. I think they'll get up for this game. Look, Florida State getting to a bowl, I think, is important this year. Need this game. And sitting at 3-5 also can ruin NC State's season. NC State been decimated by injuries as well. They lost their star guard, and they've now lost 4 starters on the defensive end. The latest being Isaiah Moore, their captain and star linebacker. They already lost Peyton Wilson, their star linebacker, earlier in the year. So this defense is just not the same. And yes, they went on the road and got a win over Louisville. Final score looks lopsided. They trailed in that fourth quarter. They were outgained. They gave up a ton of yards. I think that, look, this is the same NC State team that went down to Miami and lost a couple weeks ago. awful spot for them. I think Florida State is not being respected enough in the market for what they've done. And what has NC State really done this year? I mean, they won at BC. They beat Clemson in overtimes. I'm not as impressed with NC State. Devin Leary's playing well, but I think Florida State gets up for this game, catches NC State looking ahead a little bit, and Jordan Travis and this offense keep it rolling here. So I like Florida State. I'm waiting for the minus 120 if I can get it, but I'll play them if not. Give me the Noles.
No, I agree with you 100%. The market is screaming Florida State. I project this NC State -6, total of 54.5. NC State can take control. There's a overlooked a Wake here, but what's interesting is that Wake UNC game that happens earlier in the day, the early kickoff, it's not a conference game. So even if Wake loses that game, it has no bearing on the fact of this game, which means NC State has to win this game, right? Or else they have a 2-loss gap between them and Wake. So, it's really interesting that Wake UNC game is not a conference game. You guys can go read about that, but, give credit to the NC State offensive line. They're 5th in havoc allowed. Devin Leary is running a horizontal RPO outside zone that sets up vertical shots downfield to Devin Carter and Mecca Imzi. And, FSU is 5th in defensive tackling. They have been fantastic at tackling in space. I was a little shocked to see that this Florida State team is fielding. They have no problems tackling anybody one-on-one. And this may come to Leary throwing against the FSU secondary. The Seminoles are 58th in coverage, but the Florida State offense has been all explosive run. Not a lot of success rate in the passing game. 111th in havoc allowed, 49 tackles by loss. But if you strip out some of that McKenzie Milton stuff, you're right. I mean, the 12 fumbles this season by the offense, if you strip out some of that, it's actually been pretty decent. Yeah. Now, the NC State defense is top 30 against the explosive run, and they're 24th in line yards, and they're 12th in tackling, which means they can control Florida State's running backs from breaking the line of scrimmage and getting to those second-level yards, preventing the big gain. So I agree with you.
But they've also lost 2 linebackers. They've also started defensive tackle now, starting safety. So it's not the same unit that it's been all year.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, which is why I'm backing you with Florida State. I think it's important to get the 7 with I power rated at 6. I'm also looking at the under. I don't see a lot of big passes through the air. I don't see tempo in these numbers. I think the under and Florida State is the play.
3. Yeah, I'm waiting for that 3. And I think Florida State pulls out this upset. All right, before we get to our marquee matchups, we do have a quick reminder to check out our friends 3-Man Weave. Kai McEwen, Jim Root, and Matt Cox, who are releasing bonus college basketball betting episodes every Wednesday morning here on the Big Bets on Campus podcast. So if you're into betting college hoops, check out this week's episode. And we will transition over to basketball full-time late in December. I also have a couple pieces out there, and we just have tons of content from our team. So make sure you check that out on actionnetwork.com and the Action Network app. All right, good stuff there. We have a lot to get to in the marquee matchups. We just did 4 games, broke them down well, and look away. We agreed. Let's disagree some. I know that we're going to disagree at least on this first game. Oregon, 7-point favorites at Washington. Over under sitting at 51. Here's the question when it comes to this game with Washington. Yeah, I mean, people are saying Jimmy Lake came out and was talking about Oregon's not on academics, like at their academic level. It's going to be motivation for Oregon. If Oregon needs motivation for this game, they're in trouble. But I know that, I mean, they're in the college football playoff discussion. This is Washington's been one of the most disappointing teams in the nation this year. They're 4-4. They opened with a loss at home to FCS Montana. Dylan Morris has not been great. Their offense has not been great, but they have, I mean, their star tight end was out for a while. All 3 of their top receivers were out to start the year. Still hasn't been great. Play calling hasn't been great, but there's just at least some flashes in recent weeks. Just their defense, one of the best secondaries in the country. Trey McDuffie and Kyler Gordon are future pros, and you just can't throw on Washington at all. And so part of that is by design as well, but they have 2 excellent corners. But the run defense has been really bad. Usually it's like they let you run a little bit, but it's been really bad this year. So that's the concern. Okay, are they going to be able to score on Oregon? And then can they slow down Oregon's rushing attack? Anthony Brown running the ball, Verdell running the ball, et cetera, et cetera. Well, before I get into that, yes, I think that the defense is going to step up here and stop the run. I'll tell you why in a second. But this is also Washington's been waiting for this game. You remember last year, they won the division, but Oregon went on to win the conference because they couldn't go and play because of COVID. And believe it or not, you want to talk about like a new lease on life? Washington's 4-4. I didn't even realize this when I put my bet in. Washington's 4-4. They win this game, they're in first place in the division. I have a bet on them to win the division. They're 4-4. They could be in first place in division, ruin Oregon's college football playoff hopes. And so there's no doubt they're going to be up for this game at night, primetime Husky Stadium, raucous environment. Why do I think that they can stop the run? That's what this comes down to. Like, I assume that you're going to say they can't, which is fair, and then Oregon will be able to shred them. But Washington last week basically took their entire defense and blew it up and inserted an entirely new defense. So normally they have 3 defensive linemen. They're dropping 8, and they've been bad against the run. Well, here's what they did. They took Kyler Gordon, who's one of the best corners in the country. They moved him to slot. He's a really good tackler. He can come down and defend the run. This will also be important playing the slot against Oregon. Likes to throw to their backs. Quarterback likes to run. So they moved him to slot. They kept McDuffie, who's also one of the best corners in the country, on the outside. And they have a freshman who's also on the outside now at corner. Really good corner. They took Bradley Hiles, the Oklahoma transfer, nickel. They moved him from slot to not a great tackler to safety. For the first time all year, they started Dom Hampton, 225, bigger safety. Their safety's been awful at tackling. Played him in the box. He didn't miss a tackle all last week. So then they also started this kid Bruner, a legacy for Washington. Freshman, inside linebacker, making his first start. What did he do? 16 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. First player in Pac-12 history to win Freshman of the Week and Defensive Player of the Week. He was firing on all cylinders. Also, to get Zion, their star out edge rusher, who's going to go in the first or second round. He was up to 26 snaps. Apparently, you're going to have full go this week for Washington. But the main thing is they're playing with Gordon and now Hampton in the box. They're bigger. This linebacker looks like a stud. They're bringing their safeties down. They're playing with the better safeties in the box, and they're playing with their best run-stuffing corner in the slot. And they're not just dropping their safeties. So I don't think that they're going to do that this game. They're trusting their corners, which Washington, by scheme, generally hasn't done in the past, but they should here. You got to get better against the run, and you have elite corners. I think they have 3 corners that are all 3 are the top highest-rated corners in the Pac-12. So I loved some of the changes that Washington made. Now, it was against Stanford. It was 1 game. But just from a schematic perspective, and then the bodies that they're getting in the box, when you compare them to the missed tackle percentages for the players that were in there, it's night and day. And I think that that's going to show on the field. I'm taking a leap of faith here, but I'm also not high on this Oregon team, nowhere close to as high as the market. And people have to remember that this is the same Oregon team that lost at Stanford. Washington just beat Stanford. This is the same Oregon team that needed to come back in the fourth quarter to beat Cal at home, to beat Fresno at home. And who has Oregon beat by more than 7 points this year? Colorado, Arizona, and Stony Brook, all at home. That's it. Give me Washington +7. I think they pull off the upset.
You want me to follow that up? Oh my gosh. How do I even follow that up? I
mean, you can just rely on the numbers, though. The numbers say that Washington's going to get blown out.
Well, I mean, okay, so there's a lot of things going on here. First off, 47 degrees, 40% chance of rain, 12-mile-an-hour cross orientation, across the grid winds. So there's some weather element coming in here, too. So I didn't expect a lot of air under the ball from either of these offenses anyways. But this is going to be completely a ground war here. And it's funny you mentioned those comments that Jimmy Lake made. It's funny because my oldest son is actually looking at Oregon to go to school there. They're 64th in computer science and they're 55th in mathematics. All right, that ain't so bad, Jimmy Lake. But for him to say that we compete with academic prowess like Notre Dame, Stanford, USC is quite funny. Cristobal's response was our every single ounce of our focus is on the game. And I think it's important stuff. I agree that the schematic changes were needed.
Maybe he thought he was at Washington University in St. Louis, by the way. That's a really sorry, I love you, Washington.
I agree with you that the schematic changes were needed by Jimmy Lake on the defensive side of the ball. And I had read that, but my problem is that Stanford still averaged 54% success rate on running plays. That's 10% above national average on running plays last week. And they were only stuffed 7 of 24 runs, which is below national average in stuff rate. So the people that are moving into the box is good at stopping explosive runs, but it's not exactly meeting at the line of scrimmage or getting tackles for loss, which was a part of the handicap that I had. Now, I'm not going to come on here and pretend like this is Oregon's defense is going to be able to stop what Washington is doing. I just don't like Jimmy Lake. I don't like Jimmy Lake's comments. You look at some of these things that under his reign, the hiring of John Donovan as offensive coordinator, he's just an offensive dinosaur. I mean, he is not fit for this job whatsoever. And on the other side, you have Joe Moorhead back on the sidelines. And that's just a huge coaching mismatch when it comes from an offensive perspective. Oregon's been fantastic on the ground with Anthony Brown, now Travis Dye, greatest mustache in all of college football. The offense is 9th in havoc allowed. They're 14th in line yards. And like I said, they're going to move the ball. Maybe they'll get met 5 to 7 yards in standard downs. But again, Washington's 118th in stuff rate, like I said, and that hasn't changed. So the Huskies are, they used to be the standard in college football in defensive havoc. Now they're outside the top 100. So I think Oregon's going to run all day, especially with the weather. Big advantage in finishing drives. Oregon's team total is certainly, that was in my scope all week. If you don't want to take the 7, if you can't swallow the 7, because I agree with Stock. Oregon's not like beating people by oblivion, like huge amounts. The question is can Washington keep up? If you're going to back that 7, the offense is 122nd in big play percentage. They're in bad weather. And that's one area where Oregon struggles. So if Washington can't expose where Oregon struggles, which is defending big play, Oregon's outside the top 100 in tackling on defense. I said it a billion times. They can't defend the rush. They're good at pressuring the quarterback. They can't defend the rush. So, if Washington can't expose that and get to the second level, their scoring is going to be light. So I'm looking at Oregon to keep scoring on the ground. It may not be necessarily fast. It's going to be sloppy. I just think this is a bad matchup in the trench for Washington at the point of attack at line of scrimmage. I think John Donovan's going to get out coached by Moorhead. I'm going to bet the angle of Oregon over 28.5. I know it's a slower tempo game, and I know that there's not going to be explosive plays on the ground, but listen, I don't think Cristobal is a very happy person right now. So I'm not expecting anybody to be taking knees or letting Jimmy Lake. I mean, Jimmy Lake.
Cristobal doesn't know how to take knees. So
no, that's true.
I might be able to get a back door if he's up 10 and doesn't know how to take knees. By the way, Kent State, take knees.
I'm taking team total over 28.5. I'm not going to conflict with your Washington +7, but the offense with John Donovan worries me. That's all.
We shall see. I'm actually looking forward to that one, especially because I have a Washington.
We both have the North, right?
Yeah, to win the North, which I wrote off, and then I'm looking at the standings, and I'm like, oh wait. Let's move on to our second marquee game of the day. Texas A&M has looked better in recent weeks, although the competition hasn't been great. Hosting Auburn. Auburn fresh off that win that we talked about earlier against Ole Miss, but it was an undermanned Ole Miss team. These two teams still have a shot to win the SEC West. And so they're, Texas A&M already beat Alabama. Auburn will get to play Alabama later in the year. So there's still a lot to be determined. Texas A&M, 4.5 point favorite here. This line is dipped down to 3.5, up to 4, 4.5. Over under 49 is dipped down a few points. I think I saw you put in a bet on the app on the under 24 first half. I took up half the podcast on Washington's defense. I will let you talk this one. I just need a push here. So this just a gentle shove, and I think I'm going to be joining you on this under because that was my lean here. What do you got
Yeah, Texas A&M, they're off a bye. They went heavy rush their past 2 games. I know the level of competition isn't exactly Alabama, but they've had twice as many running plays as they have passing games, and that's by design. When you have Shane and Spiller, they rank 2 of the top 20 FBS backs by PFF in the category of elusiveness, which means these guys are about impossible to take down. You're lucky to have 1 back in the top 20. A&M has 2. And I mean, we're talking like Zamir White, like teams that Auburn has faced, like they have not seen a running back this great. A&M's got 2 of them. Jimbo mentioned this week, he got to his presser off the bye week, that my offense now has an identity, and that is heavy run. Calzada throwing into a great Auburn secondary, that's just going to be limited to play action pass on 3rd downs, and that's after they've completely set up the run so that they can get this secondary to bite. I don't think you're going to get Roger McCreary at the corner to bite. I don't think you're going to get Smoke Monday. It's a very good secondary that's out
McCreary's been awesome.
Yeah, and the 4-2-5 defense, the defense that Derek Mason is calling is a really great secondary, multiple schemes. I don't think Jimbo wants Calzada throwing into that unless it's like 3rd and 18. And even then, it might be a swing pass over to Shane or Spiller. So I don't see a lot from Calzada coming out of this game, and that's by design. So as far as Bo Nix goes, he's got to look at this 4-2-5 defense of Texas A&M. They're 14th against the explosive pass. They're 6th in defensive finishing drives. Texas A&M's top 20 in coverage. And Jimbo spoke of what makes Bo Nix special in these games when he does his little scramble routine, his little spin snake move, like delayed bootleg type thing, that he has coached. Mike Elko and Jimbo have coached the defense all week about the zones on the field you have to cover when Bo Nix gets loose. And I thought that was, one of the most intelligent things I've heard about how to defend Bo Nix when all shit breaks loose, because it does. And then Bo Nix does all this crazy stuff and boom, you have a pass, right? So that's why I like the under, because Jimbo and Elko have a plan with 4-2-5 to disguise pre-snap and to fill the zones where Bo Nix likes to throw when he scrambles. Harson's expected to stick to a balanced approach with Bigsby and Hunter right into the TAMU front 7 instead of testing the secondary. Brian Harson's like hell-bent on having a balanced attack. Jimbo wants to own time of possession stat. It's like his mantra. It's everything. If he had a Twitter banner profile, it'd say, I want to own the clock. They're 96th in tempo. Auburn's 5th in defensive passing downs explosiveness. They're going to limit big plays against Shane and Spiller. They're going to limit what Calzada does with the play action pass. I took under first half, 48 and 47, very key. So 49, 50.5 on the board. Those are good unders. Under 49 is good. I lean Texas A&M here, but I power rate at -2. So I can't get up into this dead number, this 5.5, 4. I think it's way too much. I'm not really exactly looking to back Auburn. I will if I had to, but I think the under is just a much better play. A&M off a bye, give me first half under. Auburn coming off, a consecutive amount of games on the road in a big spot. First half under.
I agree with you, and I'm going to be joining you. I'm down for the under. You know another reason? Because of punters from down under. Both of these teams have excellent punters from Australia who can boom the ball.
Les Miles started that trend, the Aussie punter.
Yeah, the Aussie punter. So they both have huge legs. So I think I agree. I think that both these defenses have some advantages, and you're not going to see too many explosive plays. You're going to see each team be pretty conservative early. Lots of punts in the first half and big punts to flip field position. So I agree with you there.
And, we're going to get to another team, another SEC team off a bye, but these SEC teams that get the bye week and come off of it, they look excellent. They get a week of rest. They look fantastic.
Yep. All right, let's move on to our third marquee game of the day. Michigan State, currently in the college football playoff, in the first 4 of the college football playoff, will travel to Purdue. And Purdue is a 3-point home underdog over under 53. This could have been a look ahead or look away segment.
Yeah.
Just from a horrible situational spot. Michigan State now in the college football playoff rankings, top 4 for the first time. They come back to beat their in-state rival, and now they go to Purdue, who we known has knocked off some big teams at home. in their day. I love Purdue this weekend. Probably my favorite bet. Look, bad spot for Michigan State. Agree. Michigan State, I don't know where all this love is coming from. This is a team that should have lost to Nebraska if they don't get a punt return for a touchdown. They had 10 yards in the second half. It's a team that should have lost to Indiana and Jack Tuttle if they don't get a pick six. They won 20-15. They were outgained by Indiana's poverty offense. This is a team that was down 30-14 in the second half to Michigan and gave up 600 yards of offense and were outgained by almost 200 yards. Easily. Oh, and in Miami, the scoreboard looked lopsided. Miami didn't want to tackle that day. Huge fourth quarter. They had a 20% win probability at one point in that game. They could have 4 losses easily right now. So I think this Michigan State team is overvalued in the market. Kenneth Walker has been amazing, but Purdue, top 25 success rate against the run, EPA per run. Their defense has been really good, and I think that they can pretty much sell out here and stop Walker because I don't think Jalen Naylor is going to play, which is huge. He leads their team in receiving touchdowns as their deep threat. He didn't play in the second half last week. He was in a cast. I think he's out. And on the other side of the ball, Purdue can't run it. So throw that out. They're not running it here. They can't run against anybody. What is Purdue? It's a short passing attack, quick passing attack, headlined by David Bell. What does Michigan State do poorly? They can't stop the pass. And they know that. Their corners aren't great, so they play really soft coverage. I think they're giving up their completion percentage allowed is 90th in the country. Well, what does Purdue do? Short passes. They can eat all day down the field. Now, Michigan State's bend, don't break, and Purdue has trouble in the red zone because they can't run the ball. That could be a factor here. But I think this game is a coin flip. I'm getting 3 with the home team that I think has some advantages on both sides of the ball in a great spot. Give me the Boilers +3. Love it.
Yeah, well, I love it too. The price point is what scares the hell out of me. So I project this game at 4. I got to get out of my head with these numbers sometimes and step back. We've talked about this before. If you're a math guy and you're chained to a spreadsheet, sometimes you got to step back and take the temperature of the room. And I feel like I need to do that with this Purdue team. Question is, can Purdue stop Kenneth Walker III? Purdue's 44th in tackling. That means they can get him in space. They're 26th in defensive rushing success rate. They can stop him at the line of scrimmage. Walker's rated. We talked about elusive backs with Texas A&M having 2 of them. Walker is the number 1 rated most exclusive back in all of PFF's ratings. You just can't bring him down. So, the Boilermakers are a much better pass rush unit with George Kalafdis. They're 10th in havoc. They're 17th in pass rush. So Purdue is, 93rd in defensive stuff rate. So I think Walker has a bigger chance of explosive plays than Peyton Thorne throwing to Jaden Reed and Jalen Naylor. And I think that's where this fascination with
But I think Naylor's out. I think Naylor's going to be out.
I guess I didn't know that he was going to be out. But if he's out, I mean, that kind of brings this point to a head, which is people are falling in love with the Spartans because they love the explosive play. Michigan had explosive plays and explosive drives, and they're not an explosive team whatsoever. Cade McNamara doubled the national average in explosive drives against the Spartans defense. They averaged 10.5 yards per play in passing downs. Michigan did. Aiden O'Connell to David Bell is it's a real threat. I mean, if Cade McNamara is averaging 10.5 yards in passing downs, what's Aiden O'Connell to David Bell going to do? And, when you fall in love with these explosive teams, I keep referencing this piece that I wrote in the summer. You can't base your against the spread stuff on teams that are explosive or can stop explosive plays or have an explosive offense. It's a zero-sum game. There's no against the spread value. It's all about success rate and finishing drives. And when you look at that, both these defenses are 11th and 13th in finishing drives. Both offenses are 87 and 93rd. So the explosive plays is what I think can get this total over. Terrible special teams player. Purdue 87th, Michigan State 122nd. So I'm going to take this game on the over up to 54.5, key number being 55. But I don't know. I need a 4 with Purdue. I don't know if I just can't swallow the 3. I'm with you in this game. I don't know why I just can't lay it on the 3. Is this some sort of I got to step out of the spreadsheet and just accept the fact that Purdue is winning this game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm higher on Purdue and lower on Michigan State than most. I mean, I have this as a pick. So I think Purdue outright here. Michigan State's luck is going to come to an end here. And by the way, people saying in People are making the dumbest arguments for who deserves to be in the top 4. It's like, well, Alabama should be in there because they're the best team, and they'd be 14-point favorites over Cincy. Well, they probably wouldn't, but all right. Well, then why is Michigan State in there? They'd be 14-point underdogs to Ohio State.
Yeah,
you gotta love the illogical art. Be consistent. All right, if we're putting the best teams in there, then who cares what happens? Anyway, all right. Let's move on to our. Yeah.
You got any opinion on Michigan over Oklahoma at 7 and 8? That one was ahead. I've been trying to figure that one out all week. I mean, Oklahoma's on a bye. They're gonna Sooner fans should not get. I have a Sooners national.
Yeah, but that shit's gonna work itself out.
Yeah, it's gonna work itself out. They'll float up.
But my only beef is with Cincy getting shafted. This is the year that you'd want a Cincy in, and then Alabama's losses don't matter. But anyway, we'll cash the under 11.5 win total happily at the end of the year because their loss did happen. All right, moving on to the final marquee matchup of the weekend: undefeated Wake Forest, 2.5-point underdog in Chapel Hill against 4-4 North Carolina. Most people thought those records would be flipped coming into the year. Sam Hartman has been unbelievable. Wake Forest defense hasn't been that great. They've had a couple high wire escape backs against Syracuse, was the one that comes to mind about a month ago. But they're still 8-0. They're in control of their own destiny. Maybe if they went out, they get into the college football playoff. They need a lot of help there. But you got to love Sam Hartman. He's playing really well. Is this a good spot to buy UNC low? Been a really weird team to figure out on a week-to-week basis. Been very up and down. I'm sure they're going to be really up for this game, and they're only laying 2.5 at home. I mean, this number before the season would have been a lot higher, but Wake has obviously exceeded expectations, and North Carolina has been disappointing. What do you see here?
Yeah, this was a game I was shocked. I mean, when I did the numbers on Sunday and it came out, and I had this North Carolina minus 5.5 in the Action Network power ratings, I was just like, wait a minute, this can't be correct. And I think sometime on Sunday night, I noticed that SP Plus makes this game North Carolina -4. So, I mean, if you trust our 2 power rating systems, North Carolina is the play without even staring at it. So, the total I make about 73. That thing's up there in the 70s.
Total is sky high, 77.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a MAC game, right? So, I don't know. The market is screaming right now. UNC -2.5. A lot of tickets coming in, but the bigger handle is coming in on North Carolina. I think a lot of sharp money likes North Carolina because the question is, have they found their legs on offense? It's been a 1-loss, 1-win schedule since mid-September. Win one, lose one, win one, lose one. But the Heels are running the ball exceptionally well as of late. 63% success rate running in the loss against Notre Dame. On the season, there's 61% success rate on the ground, averaging 6.4 yards per play. That is huge numbers on the ground. That's an issue for Wake Forest. That was the handicap with Army. Wake Forest can't defend the run, 120th in line yards. Their success rate through the air against the pass and against the rush is dreadful. I mean, if they make the college football playoff, it's going to be gross. But, these numbers, UNC can expose this. They're 35th in offensive finishing drives. They can move the ball. They can score 6 every time. Now, what's not positive is this UNC defense is holding Wake from scoring on every drive. UNC allowed 44 points to Notre Dame. We've said enough about their offense. They allowed 42 to Miami, the Tyler Van Dyke special, 35 to Florida State in recent games. So, I mean, UNC is the play for the simple fact that A, the power rating indicates it, B, the market value indicates it, C, there's an element that North Carolina can run the ball and control the clock. Now, I'm not saying Phil Longo is trying to give up tempo and drain clock. I've never seen Phil Longo do that. But if you're not laying UNC -2.5 or taking the money line, this could be the greatest live trading game of the day, similar to Kent and Northern Illinois last night. I mean, the score is going to be up that high. It's a great live trading game.
That's what I was going to say. Whoever you like on this side, or if you just want to trade it, just wait live. There's going to be a ton of points. But it should be a very entertaining game between 2 excellent quarterbacks. All right, that'll wrap up our marquee matchups of the weekend. Great stuff there. Let's move on to the rundown. Let's bring in a couple other games here. Let's go back and forth. I can bring up one. You can bring up one. I'll start with one of you. I think you'll agree with one with Tennessee. The Tennessee I played +1. I think there's still +1 out there. I'd like it to -1. After making some adjustments this week and for the spot, I actually make this tad over Tennessee -3. And Kentucky, look, they left Lexington undefeated, in charge of their own destiny in the SEC and College Football Playoff. Well, they lost to Georgia. Then they go to Mississippi State. They lose that. They come back with 2 losses. Meanwhile, Tennessee's off of a bye. They're looking to avenge a loss from last year, an embarrassing home loss to Kentucky. They got healthier. Hooker's healthier now. And Kentucky is just beat up. I mean, Chris Rodriguez, who's the straw that stirs the drink for their offense, he's hurt. He had couldn't even hold on to the ball last week. McQuall, their other defensive tackle, still is not ready to come back. They already lost one of their other best defensive tackles for the season. They had a linebacker, a corner leave the game last week. They're just really beat up across the board. But one of their best offensive linemen left, went to the locker room, Darren Rosenthal. They're just a beat up unit. Tennessee's much fresher, much healthier. Because of the defensive tackle injuries, the Kentucky run defense has been slipping. The pass defense isn't great. Hooker can take advantage of that. And I think Tennessee pulls out a win here.
Yeah, 100%. Bulls outright in this game. I missed the 3. So I said, I'm just going to take money line early in the week. I think they win this game. Injuries on the roster for Kentucky. This is sort of a revenge spot for some of the players on the Tennessee team, although I think the entire team is in the transfer portal. But, the Wildcats want to run the game, want to run the entire game and drain clock. But, Hooker and Josh Heupel's fastest offense in the nation on the field. The offensive line has gotten healthy. Kentucky's 124th in defensive passing success rate. Mississippi State took advantage of that. Best bet last week, won easy. Tennessee had issues with protection, but Kentucky pass rush is just not there. Like you said, no explosive plays, but opponents are moving the chains all day against Kentucky's defense. That's a bad combination against a Tennessee team that excels in finishing drives. I'm with you, Vols. I love these SEC teams off a bye.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's still not being properly accounted for in the market with Hooker. Some of their numbers are depressed when they had Milton in there. Another game, I think I'm gonna end up playing this game. This is dicey, but I think I'm gonna play Nebraska plus 15 against Ohio State. Nebraska is a very odd team, but you cannot back them as a favorite. They still continue to make mistakes and turn it over and find ways to lose games, but they're a very good underdog. They have great players on defense. They can move the ball on offense. They're 3-0 against the spread as an underdog this year. Could have won all 3 games against 3 teams that are now in the top 8 of the College Football Playoff. 2 of them on the road. Hung with Oklahoma in Norman till the end. Should have beat Michigan State. Should have beat Michigan. So, give me 14.5 here for their Super Bowl. This is their Super Bowl now. Need to win for bowl eligibility. Can ruin Ohio State's season. They've lost 3 straight. They could have won all 3 of those games, by the way. It's just what Nebraska does. But over 2 touchdowns, I think this is when you play this Nebraska team. And what did we learn last week? Ohio State made the play calling change. We said, okay, we haven't really been able to see if the defense is that improved because they were playing cupcakes and they played Indiana's 4-string quarterback. Well, we saw last week the pass defense is still bad. Penn State was 400 yards passing, 11 of 16 on 3rd down. You can still move the ball in this Ohio State defense. I think this is a touch high. I need over 2 touchdowns. But I think it's a good spot for Nebraska. And it's just an odd team. Never take them as a favorite. Only back them as a dog. And maybe they're due to not make mistakes, but I'm going to be playing Nebraska here. Nebraska,
6 losses on the season by a combined 33 points. That tells you that covering 14.5.
Everyone by 1 possession. Yep.
Yeah. It tells you that this shouldn't be an issue covering this kind of spread. And if you believe that Adrian Martinez can expose the defense for the Buckeyes at 73rd in coverage and 111th in passing down success rate, Nebraska's going to move the ball when they get behind schedule. If you invest in Nebraska, you have to worry about the Buckeyes ranking of 8th in defensive havoc. And that's where I get a little tentative stuck. I mean, just taking the ball away from Martinez has been too easy this year. 4 offensive turnovers last week against Purdue. Ohio State, one of the best offenses in the country, number 1 in big play percentage, 5th in passing success rate, and 7th in finishing drives. I'm not going to get in the way of the Buckeyes team that's going to try to get in the top 4 of the College Football Playoff, but you're right. This is Scott Frost absolutely making an exit from Nebraska with a loss here. They already have 6 losses. This will put them at 7. No postseason. Nebraska is going to play all out. I think possibly this might be a first half play for me on Nebraska, maybe a money line play. I agree with you that Nebraska is the side, and they've choked late in games. Huge spread. You can't handicap injuries and turnovers, and that has just been the hardest thing with Adrian Martinez all these years.
Yeah, I mean, but you also say Ohio, like this is a noon kick for Ohio State off the Penn. And you say they want to get into the top 4 of the college football. I think they know that if they just win out, they're in. I mean, Michigan State's ahead of them, and they're going to play them. And if they win the Big Ten, they're in. So I don't think Ohio State's worried about running it up.
They got to get Oregon. They got to get Oregon to take a loss. The committee.
No, but if Michigan State's ahead of them. If Oregon and them win out, they're both going to get in, I think. So I don't think that they're that too worried about it. All right, LSU, Alabama here. Who cares? LSU has no players left. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this about an LSU Alabama game. Alabama's minus 28.5. I think it may get like 26, but I'm not betting LSU. I'm leaning the under. Maybe I'll play the under here, under 67. I think it's a touch high, but Alabama's not explosive, but they're probably going to score on most drives, just marching it down the field. What are you going to get from LSU though? They can't run it. So, I mean, are they throwing picks and just throwing it all over the field? That's the scary part about the under. I mean, makes sense of this game. I got nothing here.
Yeah, I actually do have something on this game. I mean, I project Bama minus 24, and the injuries on the LSU defense and the possibility of Doug Nussmeier getting more snaps from Max Johnson, is maybe what's beefing this lineup a little bit, or the fact that Saban just has an axe to grind against Coach O after the 2019 season and the Joe Burrow perfection and just wants to rub it in. But, Doug Nussmeier getting more snaps, the freshman, is likely because they don't want him to transfer. Now, I'm not sure whose call that is, if that's Coach O's call or what, but Nussmeier got some plays in last week. Now, he's got a cannon for an arm, but he's wild. Like, he'll try to throw it into windows, Brett Favre style, that, it's just not there. So we'll see, what Alabama can do with that. But, Saban off the bye, focusing on 2 different areas of explosiveness. The defense is 5th in line yards, and that's good enough to stop the LSU rush defense that awakened against Florida, kind of went dormant again. Saban mentioned that the deep ball is getting focused now in practice. Bryce Young has been limited in deep passing. I believe Stuckey calls him Captain Checkdown. Some of that is a pass blocking rate of 60th. If LSU can get a pass rush off of a depleted defensive line, Young will start to look downfield instead of checking down to Mechie or Williams. But Saban made it a point in his press conference. It's time for us to start throwing downfield. And I want that to be an element of our offense. Bama's 4th in offensive finishing drives. LSU defensively outside the top 100. That defense will let anybody score a touchdown. Alabama, I don't think Saban has forgotten 2019. Team total over, first half over, especially with Saban coming out and saying that the deep pass needs to be a part of our repertoire and we need to start working on that. I think it is bad to be an LSU team. So give me some overs. Give me some Bama team totals overs.
An awful LSU Bama matchup. But we haven't talked Arkansas football off of a bye, 5.5 point favorite at home against Leach and Will Rogers, who was rolling after that Alabama game. They put him 38 of 41 against Kentucky. Anything on your Hogs and Miss State?
I haven't made a play yet. I mean, there's one thing that really bothers me about the Razorbacks. They're coming off a bye. I project them -8 in this game. That should give value on what's a dead number right now in the market. Total of 52. The number on the board is higher than that. I really wanted to get an over on this game. And the big reason for that is that our star safety, Jalen Catalon, he's out with a shoulder
injury for the year.
Yeah. And that is a monster loss because Miles Slusher is going to come in and step in. He is not near the vocal captain in the secondary that Catalon is. And that gives me pause against a Mississippi State, dink and dunk offense that Will Rogers is just going to throw on all day. Now, Barry Odom was given credit for the whole rush 3, drop 8. I think Leach has seen it enough. They know how to attack that. And the question is Ridgeway and Trey Williams.
You saw it with Kentucky and just shredded it.
Yeah, they shredded it. And Ridgeway and Trey Williams trying to get pressure. This is not last season where Bo Pelini in the opening game, Bo Pelini for LSU decided to stay in man and allow the air raid to tear them apart. And then Arkansas ran this, rush 3 and just tore, Costello up. This is different. This Mississippi State offensive line is protecting Will Rogers really well. That air raid is running to perfection. And so we'll see what defensive coordinator Barry Odom has cooked up, but I'm a little tentative without Jalen Catalon in that secondary against Mississippi State. They're not an explosive unit on the ground. They're not explosive through the air. They're very methodical. But if Arkansas is going to score, it's not going to be on the ground. Let's switch to the other side with KJ Jefferson. I love Dominic Johnson. I love Raheem Sanders. the Arkansas running backs are great, but Mississippi State has a great run D. They allow 89 yards a game. They're 21st in line yards. So what does that mean? We're looking at we're looking at KJ Jefferson trying to hit Treylon Burks in double coverage. Has that changed? There were some real questions about Kendall Briles. His offensive play calling in those last two games against Ole Miss, against Auburn. There's some real questions internally within the fan base, within the program about like, what are we calling here? Especially with that 2-point conversion that we ran, against Ole Miss. So I'm a little tentative on back in Arkansas. I want the over coming off of a bye, but Mississippi State isn't exactly explosive, but Jalen Catalon is in there. So there's going to be a play. I would say just, keep your eyes on the app. I'm either going to back Arkansas or I'm going to back an over. Could be split first half, could be full game. I'd say just keep your eyes open. But the Catalon thing really bothers me when backing Arkansas because we saw this last year. Bumper Pool went out, Grant Morgan went out, and all of a sudden every team put a 50 burger up on Arkansas. So it gives me a little pause.
By the way, we have to talk about the Super Bowl, the best game on the board.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about LSU, Alabama at night. Who cares? We have UTSA at UTEP. UTEP is an 11-point home dog, over under sitting 51-52 range. What do you got here for the game of the weekend?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to pick one of our favorite children, right?
Meat versus pizza party.
Stuck. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you and I have been celebrating the life of the Roadrunners since they became FBS members, and we have nurtured UTEP from multiple winless seasons up into this juggernaut of a bowl team that they've turned into. And now we have to divide and pick one. How pissed off is UTSA after the college football playoff snub? We don't know. Traylor is a great coach. He got his contract renewed. It's going to be pretty expensive for a Power 5 program to come in and pick him off as a head coach. UTSA has the same goal every game. They want to run it down people's throat. 58% rush rate, not the best success rate in the world, but they're 14th in havoc allowed. They don't make mistakes. They're 31st in line yards. They can move the ball in standard downs, stay on schedule. They've been excellent passing downs. Frank Harris at quarterback, they're 16th in passing down success rate. They're top 20 in passing success rate. They're just, everything moves with this offense. And that is a big Achilles heel to what is an outstanding UTEP defense. They have a coverage rank of 71st, and UTEP's 95th against the explosive pass. So I want to make a case for UTEP. I mean, the biggest issue backing UTEP in this game is their strength of record. That reflects the chance that an average top 25 team would have the same record or better. UTSA, 11th in strength of record. UTEP, 117th. So when I look at these UTEP defensive numbers, I love you, Miner Nation, but you put these up against Bethune-Cookman, who put up 28, Boise State, who put up 54. Schedule includes Old Dominion, Southern Miss, La Tech. You flip over to UTSA, and you got wins against Western Kentucky, Memphis, Illinois. I mean, better victories. So, just by strength of record alone, the UTSA defense is the difference in this game. UTEP, a heavy rush, but they're 124th in success rate. They seem.
It's amazing how good their passing offense has been. I mean, they run it a lot. So, but they had McCormick, which was all right, this is going to be the star of the show. But no, it's the passing offense.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I'm focusing on is that when UTEP scores their points in bunches, it comes in the fourth quarter. It comes in the second half. It's never like they come out guns blazing, even against New Mexico State. So this is a UTSA play for me. I think I might cut it up and do a first half, though. The whole college football playoff snub, the advantages that I see against the UTEP defense, I think it's a first half play because UTEP has proven against multiple teams in the fourth quarter, they can get 18 points up on the board real fast. I don't know where it comes from. I love you, Miner Nation, but this instant offense that comes in the fourth quarter, that's why we love you, but I'm going to try to avoid it and probably go UTSA first half here.
They love covering. They've been certainly good at that. We'll go quickly here for a couple other games. Just one sentence. I'll give you Missouri, only team in the country who's yet to cover at Georgia. Georgia, 39-point favorite. I mean, I make this a little lower. I show value on Missouri, but no thanks. I mean, Missouri's run defense is historically bad, so Georgia can just hand it off here, and who knows how much they can put up. By the way, Georgia's defense is in non-garbage time possessions, non-garbage time drives, allowing 0.32 points per drive. Alabama in 2011, considered maybe the best defense ever, allowed 0.5. They're allowing 0.32.
Yeah.
Now, there's going to be some regression in the scoring. I mean, like Florida, how many drives did they get down to the 20 and not score? But I mean, this Georgia defense is historically good. No, I have no interest in Missouri.
39 is way too large, but once you look at the fact that Connor Bazelak had an injury, left the game, and now Drinkwitz being mum about who the quarterback is, if Connor Bazelak was in there, I would consider 39, especially because I make it like 33, and I think SP Plus is at 29. But then I go and remember what Georgia did against Vanderbilt. No thanks. So I'm going to step out of this. I would consider with Bazelak.
Texas, Iowa State 6.5 point favorite. Is the monkey a distraction? Is the monkey a rallying point? Anything here?
I listen, we have players getting into altercations with Sark, getting kicked off the team. We've got special teams coaches that make $1 million. I just listen, people, if you have not gotten into this monkey story, is possibly some of the best entertainment that I've seen in college football. I mean, just the whole scenario around the monkey's owner and how the owner came into the special team coordinator's life, the history behind that.
The monkey's part of the stripping act.
The monkey is on the pole. The monkey kisses the money, wears a diaper, and climbs the stripper pole. Find me a better entertainment value NBA. I'm so tired of hearing how the NBA is the most dramatic league. I have a monkey on a pole. All right? Come on, NBA. Try to live up to that.
Sark said he's only hiring men of high morality and character.
God. Over here. Yeah, the Texas defense is just not getting any better. Give me an over here.
Any other games you want to mention? I'll throw out Navy autoplay. Navy over 2 touchdowns. Woo.
I took the over.
I don't care they're playing.
Yeah.
Navy plus 21. I don't care if they are playing Georgia. If they're catching, I mean, obviously it would be getting a lot more. Navy over 2 touchdowns. Service Academy over 2 touchdowns. Undefeated so far this year. Auto. Don't care if it loses. It's like 65% historically and should continue to do so until the market drastically reacts to the service academies. But you like the over there?
I do like the over there with Navy. Something has clicked with them. It just wasn't a fluke against Cincinnati. They are actually getting, some form of success rate with the triple option. So yes, I agree with you. Over. I do like Navy too. I'm going to pivot off into the other service academy game, Army and Air Force going up against each other. I took over 37, Stuck. I know.
Oh man.
I know. And years ago, you and I, this was huge for you and me. I mean, these odds makers would throw out 55 and we would just pound that shit down to 42. Right. And now we're opening 37, and so when you break this game down, I'm not going to sit here and hide behind the spreadsheet and say, yeah, I make this 44.5, but I will tell you that these teams have very strong offensive finishing drives compared to their defensive counterparts. Army, 13th in offensive finishing drives, 46th on the Air Force defense. Air Force, 36 in offensive finishing drives. Army, 110th in defensive finishing drives. So both teams are going to have success running the ball. Air Force has just been a machine running the ball. Army is going to be able to run the ball for whatever that's worth. I don't know about the status of Christian Anderson, but these two teams fold in the red zone. They fold when it gets within the 40. 37, what is that? What is that? It's 17-14, and then there's a sneeze and it goes over. I mean, it's not hard to get over 37. We saw that with Wisconsin and Iowa. So, over for me on 37.
It's just different when service academies play each other. I can't get on board with you there because against
37
service academy betting religion.
We had this conversation last year that someday these totals would be opening in the 30s and we'd have to start playing overs. Where did that Stucky go? Where'd that guy go? You're gonna play this down to
I need lower. I need like 33 to go over here. I make this 34, no joke. All right.
I do have a stink of the week.
Let's talk stink of the week. Let's talk the smelliest, fishiest line of the week. And, the one that I was going to throw out.
You might take
the one that I was going to throw out. I mean, I like it. I like the other side, but I could see a lot of people looking at Michigan State and saying, oh, no, they're only -3 on the road against Purdue. How about you? What's the smelliest line of the week?
Easy. This one was on the board. I was like, what is this? Old Dominion favored by 3 on the road to Florida International. Old Dominion's lost 10 straight on the road. They're 1-15 straight up on the road since 2018. That win was over a 3-9 Western Kentucky team. None of these players were on that team in 2018. This team can't win on the road. And then I go and I pull Florida International splits. Butch Davis has 7 losses. There's no chance of making a bowl. I'm not sure what's being played for here, but Old Dominion favored on the road in an FBS game. Stink. Big stink. I'm probably going to end up playing Florida International. I'm not going to like it. I am going to watch it, and I'm probably going to hate myself every second. But Old Dominion on the road. Come on.
Smelly. All right, before we get out of here, let's go 3-0. All right, first down, we got Friday Night Lights. We have Virginia Tech at Boston College. Boston College is a 3-point home underdog. Virginia Tech off of a win at Georgia Tech. Helped our Georgia Tech season win total under. What a roller coaster that's been. Boston College slipping here. You're seeing lately the impact of the injury to Phil Jerkovich, their star quarterback. Does BC get right here on Friday night? I think it's a red bandana game. So
it is a red bandana.
Crowd should be pretty good here.
Yeah, it is a red bandana game. You always back BC in the red bandana game. It's a game that I project as a pick. Virginia Tech, there are some numbers that they have that are really bad. Their offensive finishing drives 115th. Their defense is 125th in defending explosive runs. I'm not saying Boston College can expose some of these things, but Boston College's defense is 12th in defensive finishing drives. I think they're going to do a great job. And listen, it's November. Jeff Hafley needs 2 wins to get to a bowl. And there's not that many of these 4 games left. This is one that he has to have. Red bandana game to get him to 5 wins. This is a really big deal. Boston College is 10th in pass coverage. They're 15th in tackling. They can get it in open space. I think Virginia Tech's a little bit overrated here. I'm not alone. I think SP Plus makes this around 2. So
I think this close to a pick too.
Yeah. So Boston College here for me, just grin and bear it. But I mean, Hafley's a great coach. I think Justin Fuente is on his way out. There's some real phony numbers here with Virginia Tech that can be exposed.
I think I'll join you there on Friday night. The other game, Stanford. Utah's up to a 9-point favorite on the road at Stanford. There's questions about if Tanner McKee will play. If he's not playing, it could get ugly fast. Might get ugly anyway. What do you see here?
Yeah, it's a projection of 8, and that was if McKee was playing. So that definitely makes, it's a big impact. Stanford, when he wasn't playing early in the season, was living up to everything that we saw in the under 4.5 wins. There are some really bad numbers offensively that McKee is holding up. The best attribute that Stanford has on offense is that they're 21st in big play percentage. And that's just not going to be there without McKee. So absolutely, for a Utah defense, it's top 25 in defensive havoc. They are going to go crazy on a Stanford offense that is really struggling to maintain. They're terrible in havoc allowed. They're terrible. They're bottom 10 in line yards. They're 105th in offensive finishing drives. Utah defense will have a good time against that. And then if you look at the other side of the ball, Stanford's defense is just dreadful. 117th in defensive havoc, almost dead last in line yards. That is the handicap of the game because Utah is a fantastic team at running the ball, top 15 in line yards, and that's what's going to expose Stanford. So yeah, I agree. If McKee's out, there's no limit to this number. I'd probably stop buying at 13.
All right, let's move on to second down. Talk our favorite overdogs and underdogs. For those not familiar, overdogs are favorite on the board. I'll start favorite overdog. I think I might lay it here with Cincy. Cincy minus 22.5. I think there's some value on the tails with Cincinnati because, there's a distribution of outcomes and these lines assume, I don't think it's being built into the fact that, look, Cincy wants to run up the score. The last 2 weeks, they haven't been in a position to do so. But when they have been, normally when you're a team up 20, you're going to play soft defense. You're not trying to score. That impacts, how easy or difficult it is to cover, a touchdown over 3, a spread over 3 touchdowns. But in this case, if Cincy's up 24 late, they don't want Tulsa to score. Tulsa's been dreadful, by the way. And they want to keep scoring, especially after getting snubbed in the college football playoff. Cincy wants to come out here and raise middle fingers up to everyone in the country and college football playoff. ESPN tried to get Desmond Ridder on the show. He wouldn't go. I mean, this is a pissed off Cincy team against what looks like a lame duck Tulsa team this year.
Yeah.
I'm sure Tulsa will get up for this early to try and ruin Cincy's season, but if they get behind, this one could get ugly quick.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I was going to go Oregon on my overdog, and then you talked me out of it. You completely talked me out of it. And I don't like the weather, so I'm going to change my overdog. I'm going to go with Michigan. Nobody loves
Dog Jim.
Yeah, nobody loves bullying teams that are beat up, injured, and not you know, that are struggling than Bodog Jim. And considering that he finished 7th in the college football playoff rankings, style points matter. Michigan is at home. Indiana, you can just kind of you can pop them out for any postseason play. Too many injuries. Never got the offense going. Now the defense is starting to sag a little bit. Michigan is going to do everything they can to get the committee's attention with this score. Overdog Michigan.
All right, time to move on to our favorite moneyline underdog. Colin, you hit again last week. I gotta pick it up here. There's not much to say here for me. Purdue is ending Sparty's dream run. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go and look at, and really, I waited as long as I could. I still don't think I've put a play in the app, and I still haven't shoved money over the counter. But the team that I want is Memphis. SMU is, well, first off, I'm not going to play the whole Sonny Dykes is desperately wanted by TCU and by Texas Tech, and Sonny Dykes is on his way out of SMU, which is I don't think that's a part of the handicap. The handicap really is that SMU's defense is getting worse at tackling, 123rd. They're getting worse at pass coverage, 127th. We need freshman Seth Hennigan back in at Memphis at quarterback. The kid that they had run it last week, Peter Parrish, filled in at quarterback for Seth Hennigan last week with an injury. Wasn't fantastic, but it's still a passing offense, an explosive passing offense that can take advantage of this SMU defense that is just absolutely falling apart. SMU is also outside the top 100 in SP plus special teams. A lot of issues here. Now, Tanner Mordecai and the offense can still sling it. I expect this to be a shootout, but there is a massive difference in tackling here. Memphis top 25, SMU near dead last. And that is important when you are having an explosive game where teams are going up and down the field. If Seth Hennigan is in this game, that's even better. There was mention that Memphis changed some things for Peter Parrish, and they expect a lot more out of him this week if he is the starter. Hennigan can still play. That freshman kid's got a heck of an arm on him. I'm going to go Memphis here. Moneyline underdog. We're going to get this with Purdue.
Yeah, you could have a little bit of a letdown too for SMU after that thrilling, heartbreaking loss in that game against Houston last week.
Yeah.
To end their undefeated campaign. All right, before we get out of here, third down, our favorite bet of the weekend. I'll start here. Shocker, we're going Purdue. This is a Purdue podcast this week. Look, I mentioned it earlier. Purdue +3 at home against Michigan State. First of all, it's a bad spot for Michigan State. Just potential letdown. They're, hey, look, we're in the top 4 of the college football playoff. We had an emotional comeback win over our in-state rival. This is a team that got outplayed by Michigan. Should have lost that game. Got outplayed by Nebraska. Should have lost that game. Could have lost to Indiana. Got outgained in that game. And their backup quarterback. They're getting all these non-offensive touchdowns at key points in time. Even in Miami, they did a big fourth quarter. Team could have 4 losses. I also like the matchup for Purdue. Purdue's defense has been one of the most underrated units in the country. New staff has implemented a more aggressive defense. I think that they can key on Walker. They've been good against the run, top 30 success rate in EPA per rush. And I don't think you're going to see Jalen Naylor out there, the star receiver for Michigan State. That will help. The other side of the ball, Michigan State's biggest weakness this year has been in coverage. And as a result, they're playing really soft. That plays right into Purdue's hands. David Bell should have a big day. This quick, short passing attack of Purdue, I think it's going to move the ball. Awful spot for Michigan State. We've seen Purdue pull off some upsets in similar spots in the past under Brom. I think they do it again. Give me the Boilermakers and a shot and a beer to go with it on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like that play. And I'm going to go follow up with my best bet. Let's go a little G5 action. Let's go Marshall, Florida Atlantic. Right now on the board, 57.5, 58. Let's take the over on that number, take it up to 59. 59, one of the biggest key numbers in all of college football. So you'll want to get south of that with this overplay. First, you start off, you look at the tempo. Marshall is 5th in the nation in plays per minute. Florida Atlantic, 30th in plays per minute. These two teams, Willie Taggart, Charles Huff, they want to go up and down the field as fast as possible. This is a number that I project at about 60.5. So I still think it's got room to run. But more importantly, like Marshall and Grant Wells, he's not going to get any pressure whatsoever. The Marshall offensive line has been fantastic at protecting him, top 20 in pass blocking. Florida Atlantic has been terrible getting to the quarterback, outside the top 100 in pass rush, outside the top 50 in defensive havoc. They're not going to be able to stop what Marshall wants to do, and that is get the ball down the field fast. And Grant Wells is much better with a clean pocket than a crowded pocket. As far as Florida Atlantic goes, it's a very explosive offense. They can take advantage of a Marshall defense that is 90th in rushing success rate, 93rd in defensive havoc themselves. There's nobody taking the ball away from each other. There is lightning fast tempo going on in this game, and two offenses that know how to get touchdowns up on the board. And that is if the explosive play isn't already putting it in the end zone. I like these ultra fast teams getting the over in this game.
Like it. May join you there. Thank you, as always, Colin, for joining me. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Make sure you tune in on Saturday morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, for Big Bets on Campus live, which will be broadcast live on Twitter. We'll tweet out the show from our accounts, myself, Colin, and our college football insider, Brett McMurphy. And as I mentioned earlier, make sure you check out our Group of Five episode. Those guys have been killing it. The Sources episode with Colin and Brett. And of course, the college basketball episodes that'll start on Wednesday with the 3-man weave. A lot of content coming to you on the channel. Appreciate your support. As always, appreciate you guys listening. Love this card this weekend. Hopefully we can have a big weekend and a huge close to the season, just like last year. Please subscribe, unsubscribe, subscribe, leave a review. I'll do some giveaways on the recap episode. We'll recap the weekend, look ahead to next weekend, and look ahead to some action, of course, weekday action. We'll do that on Sunday night. That episode will be out on Monday morning. Tell a friend, tell an enemy, leave a review. It really helps us out. And we'll catch you later. Cheers.
Peace out.